Did it make us go live? You know what? I'm gonna. Oh, no, it's live. It says it live. It's been counting for the last 9 seconds.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna have to go mute on these. So that way, even if it's playing, I'm gonna be on mute. All right. So this is live, but making sure the LinkedIn is good, connection is good. All right. So 2 friends, 2 military vets, and 2 parents
Yes.
talking about artificial intelligence.
Right.
What a fun few conversations we're gonna have. We might, go down some scary stuff, but mostly want to be able to be comfortable with those scary stuff. But I'm not the type of person that wants to make sure that everybody gets scared, right? I'm the type of person that is like, let's get optimistic, let's get curious, and let's get closer to artificial intelligence. That's been my main priority for a very long time, right? So uh, I guess as a military veterans, we always make sure that we're discussing these topics with some good social impact that comes out of it, right? But also with safety, security, and privacy in mind, right? This is a digital transformation that's happening right in front of us. We're experiencing it. How do we make it really something that impacts everybody in a good ways, right? Minimize some of the negatives that we know internet brings with it. Sergio, sir, another military veteran, joining the conversation on LinkedIn. Thank you so much, Sergio. Um, so let's do something first that is always needed in a conversation is a good introduction, right?
Yeah.
If I make an introduction of you, I'll be super biased. So you have to make your own introduction.
Okay. So, hi, y'all. Thanks for tuning in tonight with Asif and myself. I'm Masako May, founder of Mommy to Be and Me. We decided that it would be a smart idea for us to come together as 2 parents, 2 veterans, 2 technology subject matter experts in some way or another to just put the tools into other parents' hands to be able to have confidence to have a conversation with their children around artificial intelligence, because there are some things happening in theater right now that it's important for us to understand what's happening and how to maneuver uh, uh, the roads, if we will, because there's new roads. So how do we maneuver this new framework that we're in AI? And so
Yeah.
that's why we are here tonight to have a conversation, 2 parents
Yeah.
having a conversation. So you guys are looking in on our conversation, hopefully typing in some questions for
Right.
us to be able to be transparent with how we use it, how we're going to utilize it, and what are our best next steps. But I am Masako May, founder of Mommy to Be and Me, where the me is the inclusivity of all parents, dad, mom, grandparent that happens to be a parent again, and sometimes the ISDs. We partner with school ISDs because the counselors know what children are from single parent homes, and Mommy to Be a Me is all about being the partner to the single parent. And AI is a partner at this point, a partner in our school system, a partner in social media, a partner in our children's games. So, how can we use AI responsibly? And then when to be able to see when it's no longer responsible.
Call it out. Call it out. Not being responsible. Call it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the intro that I think I was expecting from you, because you're not gonna talk yourself up, right? So I'm gonna have to do that for you. You're just an awesome, awesome person. First of all, athlete, army veteran, very involved in the community. I think anybody that I've seen you around the room, they're just building a community around you, because that's what they want to do, is have you in the center of that community. So you and entrepreneur, the drive, your ability to drive the entrepreneur. And I want to be specific about that too, because I remember back in 2020 you made room full of people cry, and I was there. And I cannot admit if I cried or not, but I think there was a bug in the room or something like that, right? So yeah, I would say I can talk you up for a long time, but you're very powerful in the sense that when a community can partner with you, that community is going to win. So I'm very happy that we kept in touch, and we are now able to do this sort of activities, right? And end goal of this conversation could go in many ways, but if I could just give one specific end goal in mind, is to have more curiosity towards what's happening. Like you said, it's in the theater. Nobody buys a ticket to a movie unless they're curious about it.
Right.
But this time around, it's just happening in front of us, and we're like, I never bought a ticket to the show, but it's happening all around me. What is happening, right?
Hmm.
If I can do one thing, and I think that's how I talk to you most of the time, is that like, let's get curious about this, right? If you get some curiosity, maybe you'll take some ownership of what's going on around you, and if you can take the ownership of it, you can do some impact to it the way it unfolds, right?
Hmm.
So as a mom and dad, it's always rush to just raise the kids. I think that's what we do 24 hours a day, right?
Hmm.
Even in the sleep, like we don't get all the sleep in the world, but
Hmm.
we're always taking care of the kids. So we have to kind of make sure that the kids are interacting with the data in a correct way, the AI correct way, the internet correct way, because we've seen the implications of it, but in small chunks and bits here and there, all of a sudden it's rushing, right? It's like all over the news feeds now, talking about kids are doing this, and we will talk about some of those bad negative things, but at the same time we want to talk about the positive of it, right?
Hmm.
And I wanted to really have this conversation with you because you're the one person that I know can speak loudly on this topic, and everybody will say, yes, that's right. you know um and I'll hit more on that later as well.
Yeah. So, thinking about the word curiosity, what comes to mind, oftentimes, let's say a mom, a dad that's in a space and they don't work in technology, they don't even know what AI is.
Yeah.
So, what is the first question that they think to themselves when they hear their children at the dinner table having a conversation about, oh, my teacher said that I can't use Chat GPT or DeepSeek, or what is the question for the parent to ask to be able to understand more about how can the parent learn about AI, about
That's
what's
right.
out in the system?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So if I was to just kind of give a rundown here, it'll be to say, problem isn't that the contents of the answers are not available. It's just that way too much of the content, way too much of these answers are available. Now we don't know how to dissect it, right? We don't know how to make this about us, make this about my family, or make this about the conditions that we're in. Or let's just even talk about the fact that you said IT and non-tech, non-IT personnel, right?
Mhm.
How do we make sure that we get the same information? We get different information that's personalized to us, right?
Right.
What if my mom and dad was just a business owner? How
Mhm.
can my mom and dad talk about that, right? Hey, Laura. Hello to you, my friend. Laura is with the Blue Star family. So shout out to the Blue Star families because this is all about family, right? So
Yes, this
shout
is
out to
all
the Blue
about
Star
family.
family. So Laura's with the Blue Star family, and she's been a longtime supporter of everything that I've been part of. So
Hi,
another
Laura.
person that pushes the entrepreneurs to be on track, right? So the personalization of this information is important, and personalization of information happens in this kind of conversation, right? If you
Mhm.
ask the question, can I answer it?
Mhm.
And can I answer it to you in a way that I can personalize a little bit? But at minimum, I can guide you into the right direction because the digital contents are vast right now, right?
Mhm.
If you go to work, they give you access to one digital content.
Mhm.
If you don't go to work, university or something like that, they give you another content. And in between, you come home, you get to another content called YouTube or free resources. But none of these resources really articulate, do it yourself, right? Like go to YouTube and just start talking about AI. How
Mhm.
many things will you have to pass by before you get to the point it says AI for your kids? Safety of AI for your kids. That's not a priority. Priority is to sell that AI product first in the first couple pages, right?
Mhm.
Then it gets us the other thing. So yeah, I think when parents are trying to get educated, the amount of contents that's out there parents have to know the right question to ask, and all of
Mhm.
a sudden those answers comes, right?
Could you
The
give us some examples of the right questions?
Yeah, I think that's what I'll have to do, because when you have to frame it correctly, you get to the answer quicker, right? But then again, you can do subcategories of questions, right? Like, as in, on one off the top of my head, I think right before the video started, we talked about the fact that how dark do you want to go? So it's like, let's keep it somewhat, something that we can all understand, right? So,
Mhm,
for example, cybersecurity attacks, right?
mhm,
Well, just kind of want to raise the question here that you have good cybersecurity measures in your home, but your kid's school, where they go and they are connected to the internet using their device, how secure is that, right? It's not that secure. It's something to worry about, something to actually discuss, something to actually ask questions about. Because in all cybersecurity activity, all the bad stuff that happens, schools are a primary target,
mhm,
because they're a soft target, right? They don't have much money to defend themselves, and if they don't have that much money to defend themselves, hackers that wants to just practice stealing information, they go after the schools.
mhm,
And if you haven't heard about majority of schools that are getting hacked, I think one that happened in Louisiana was really big news, because they literally took down a whole district, right? They took down like a lot of kids' access to education,
mhm,
and that all happened because of ransom, right? They wanted some money. Um, so this kind of activities happens a lot, but
mhm.
the part that gets a little bit disturbing is that we don't know which school it happens to. And when you don't know that school that got attacked, that school has a lot of your kids' personal information.
Yes. So let me give you an example. And
Yes.
so our kids are at school. They bring their phone and or their iPad to school. Sometimes the school has provided the iPad for the student.
Yeah.
So you get on the internet at school. So the hackers, if you will, they get into your system, and now you take your phone or your iPad home. With your products, your iPad or your iPad are the Androids, you
Yeah.
go home and you're on your internet. And so within your internet, your home internet, you're connected to your thermostat, you're connected to the doors that lock your home, you're connected to the internet that's with your alarm, that's within your alarm system. So now your system is compromised. And then when you do your updates, with most updates, it brings AI into your update of your phone and or your computer with the updates. And so now you have transferred information from each device that you have connected to with the internet that you're using. So now you are absolutely compromised. So being at home with the compromised system, how do you combat being compromised when you're not even aware that your children have now brought a possible virus into your home that's on your total network, that's now being connected to your TV, your thermostat, your alarm, your refrigerator, and your software that's on your computers.
Yeah. So I think we're not going that far down, but it's important to know just this tidbit of information, which
Yeah.
is not AI yet. And the reason we're having this conversation is to say, like, if it's AI, it gets more complex, it gets more, let's not call it disturbing, but it is
Yeah.
disturbing, right?
Yes.
I guess that's the best way to put it. Because AI can do a whole lot of things. So, like, say for example, your children's PII, right? Their PHI, the personal health information.
Hmm.
Well, hospitals don't get attacked that often, but hospitals do. But when the hospitals get attacked, guess what? Those kind of information comes out. But when the school gets attacked, we don't even know what sort of health information that they actually have and how sensitive that level is. So we're talking about, like, some kid that is not ready to go to school yet, but some kid that is about to go to school or about to go to college. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
You have different sort of sensitivity to the information, and these information using AI could become something of negative if somebody was to sabotage, right?
Right.
So something to say to the parents, like, hey, look, questions that you have to ask, how do you frame it? Because if you just say AI,
Hmm.
in my understanding of things, AI will tell you a lot of things, but AI, if you ask ChatGPT, it will tell you these are the good things and these are the bad things, right?
Right.
So if you ask Google, it will give you 3 pages worth of all the AI information you need in order to buy something for the kids. But
Right.
if you ask ChatGPT, it's going to say, here's the pros, here's the cons. But you have to ask ChatGPT that question specifically. What are some of the pros and cons of AI for a kid who's this many years old? Quickly, Sergio said, as a father of 2 daughters, I believe in the power of education to shape a brighter future, and AI is going to be a game changer in making learning. Yep. Personalized, engaging, accessible AI-driven tools can adapt to each child's unique learning process, providing interactive lessons, spark curiosity. Yep. Problem solving, creativity, adaptability, ensuring they're prepared for an ever evolving world of, like that side of it is immensely powerful. That's the
Yeah.
positive side of artificial intelligence, right?
Yes.
But now, if we're just seeing the positive of it, we need to really get curious and get involved with it, engage with it, right? Kind of create that impact to say, however it happens, can we do it safely with security and privacy in mind? And this data, how do we control this data? I think Sergio brought up a good point, because we really need to, set the stage here for, the conversations we're going to have going forward.
So I want to touch on a
Yeah,
'cause, I'm gonna play the advocate,
yeah,
right? So you have the health information or the student information within the school system that's now within the system, right? When it comes to cybersecurity, so that's out. It's open source at this point.
yeah.
Let's say it gets into the hands of a bully. It gets into the hands of a bully. So now they have the image of the person. They could make a fake account,
That's right.
say that that there's someone else attempting to connect with this person and
That's right.
create a relationship, if you will, with a fake individual. So it's like it's two
Yeah.
sides of the coin, right?
Yeah. And this is why this conversation is important to have, because it kind of gets uncomfortable, right? It gets that uncomfortable, like, man, really, like, okay, how bad is it? Tell me, right? But the good things are really there. So one of the things that you brought up, but the thing about AI is that AIs are super powerful with deep fake, right?
Mhm.
And I'm kind of going to give you a history of deep fake here. Deep fake is a terminology when somebody takes your image and does things with that image that is not you. Like, you didn't take a picture of it, but it looks like you took a picture of something. So that deepfake, it actually was made for really, really good reasons. So there's lots of pros why people should use deepfake, but
Mhm.
the cons is what everybody knows it for, right? Sort of like opposite of internet. Everybody uses the internet for good reasons, but when you talk about the dark internet, the dark web, well, the
Mhm.
dark web is for bad stuff, right?
Yeah.
But the deepfake is alternative. Like, the deepfake could do so many positive things, but instead of for the positives, they use it for negative things, right? And
Well,
that's what negative is. That deepfake is known for, is the negative stuff.
I feel like that's it seems like, it's like when you go to a new country and you learn a new language. What's the first thing that you first learn? First, you learn all of the negative things. I feel like with the space that we are in and with AI, with the positivity, like animation, movies, devices like science, medical devices for individuals with health challenges, being able to have AI to help them with their health,
Right.
certain machinery. So there's I feel like it behooves us to have the conversations with our children around the positives and the negatives, because
Right.
with AI, we're still in the beginning of AI,
Yeah.
and our children are constantly growing. So to be able to put the information within their hands at an early age, it creates a curiosity for the child as well as the parent for some career boosting, right? Because even right now, with it being so easy with AI and AI courses and the prompting and generative AI, it really puts the parents in a position where they could learn about AI, really incorporate it
Yeah.
and create a new career for themselves,
That's right.
if you will, because I feel like children do what they see their parents do. So if the parent is working and
Yeah.
overworked and unavailable emotionally because they're overworked,
Mhm.
then the children become disconnected. They oftentimes get labeled within the school system. And so that label it's a heavy weight. It's an energetic model, right? So to look at AI as a new tool for the parent to really take ownership of, to understand it, to develop it within their skill set, the things that they're already interested in, whatever it is that you're interested in, there is an avenue of AI where you could speak in your regular language to say, hey, this is what I enjoy doing. What type of job can I have in AI or in data with these things that I enjoy doing? And I feel like if other parents knew that, it really is, that easy, that simple to be able to transition your skills, your current skill set into a career with AI, it gives you an opportunity to be like the cool kid, the cool parent, and then the kids with the cool parent, they can become the cool kids because they'll become curious about, oh, well, my parents in AI, what can I do? And it,
Right.
it opens a whole nother door uh, for success.
Yeah. Yeah. So the spectrum here is so wide, right? And that's why, previous technology that we've had, and I'll use one example that nobody probably are familiar with unless they've been in the tech space, is blockchain, right? It's associated with the cryptocurrency. So, cryptocurrency today costs $100,000 a piece. Blockchain, nobody knows about that technology, but that's what makes your cryptocurrency happen, right? So some technologies are not really that wide of an impact, but you can imagine how impactful blockchain is, right?
Hmm. Yes.
So unless you're in a IT space, you're not really thinking about blockchain that often. But AI is even broader, right? Like AI spectrum is even broader because the positive and negatives of it. So we really get really lost in the use cases up top because you can just boom, 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 label it in one ways and all of a sudden map it to something negative, right? So earlier you said healthcare. Well, deepfake is the most powerful tool you can have in the healthcare industry if you want to make positive deepfake.
Yes. Yes.
And the terminology deepfake is not really what it's called, but it was called deepfake in Reddit. So everybody started calling it deepfake. Right? So
Hmm.
anything that's not originated by human cameras or human devices, they just call it deepfake. So everything is deepfake, right? So the spectrum is very wide. The conversation that we are having right now, it's two-sided. It's like here's pros and here's cons, right?
Always.
As you layer it down more, all of a sudden you come to a single conclusion, right? I think that's what we're heading towards right now is because that piece is data,
Yes.
right? You have to take lots of interest in data. And if you start asking questions around data, all of a sudden, there's a positive to this. I think I want to keep talking about what you just said about the job possibility for the adults in the room, right?
Hmm.
Um, the adults in the room, if they take interest in data, all of a sudden they can feel like, hey, I have a domain expertise, and that domain expertise, what's going to happen to it in the future, I don't know yet, right? But that domain expertise could be something that augmented by an AI, so that way AI can allow you to do more of that domain expertise, more of rather than less, right? Kind of always use that example of before the laptop was available in each table, people used to pick up the phone calls. Pick up the phone and call for sales, right? They used to do sales call over a notepad. And they used to write things down on a notepad. All of a sudden, you're doing sales call today using an augmentation of what? A laptop, right? We're
Yeah.
still doing phone calls. It's just that there's a laptop next to us to allow us to do more of this sales call because the note taking means if you can do it faster with the phone, that means you're not spending 8 hours in a day and you only made four phone calls.
Hmm.
With a laptop, you can make 16 phone calls. But
Yes.
now with AI, can you make 32? Right? Can you make 64 even? And did you even spend even a few minutes writing a note? Because that note was always taken for you based on the recording of the conversation. And at the end of the day, you're not listening to 8 hours long of conversation. AI took those notes and chopped it down to by bits and bits and bits and said, these stuff about where you went to school doesn't matter, but these stuff about the sales matter. So I'm just going to give you these specific ones.
Yeah.
So that's the power of AI, right? Like these are the capabilities of AI. But if you talk about it from the data side of things, all of a sudden things starts to shift a little bit, right?
Hmm.
Because let's say, for example, you're doing a sales call and you have 8 hours worth of 64 different calls. These are all your informations that you have to safeguard. like, of course, you're a salesperson, you want to safeguard the information that you're providing, but don't just take it for like a sales. Like, think of the full spectrum of any phone calls that happens, and anybody can access your data now, right? All the phone calls, all the information you gave to somebody, all the 64 calls you made, all the notes you've taken, somebody's able to access that information.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that earlier, that if
Yes.
your kid brings a device home that was connected to the school, all of a sudden it comes home. Now somebody's able to access all the things that are happening within your home network, within your home devices, and somebody's listening to your conversation. Somebody's listening into the notes that you're taking. Somebody's able to just say, let me copy and paste every notes that was taken on the laptop.
Yeah.
Right? So this is the sort of awareness that we want to bring with the data, because safety, security, and privacy of AI is another way of saying safety, security, and privacy of the data, right?
Right.
If someone can copy and paste it, okay, somebody took my information, I'm going to go find out who that did it, right? But it gets even more deeper, because somebody took your information and trained an AI to take that information and replicate what it is that you can do. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
It's
And
a
so I
layer
want
of
to
complexity.
say this, because with regard to, just think about the life that we live, right? AI is information that has been input, data has been input into a computer, right? And into a program. And a lot of AI is currently biased because previously the individuals that had the data that inputted it was biased data. So it's important for individuals of all kind to familiarize themselves with AI, to familiarize themselves with data literacy, to be able to do these jobs now functioning in the AI spectrum, so we can move the biasness out of the data that's currently within AI, because you're asking these questions and the answers that you're getting are answers from a program that has been designed from many individuals that have had a biased perspective of all things. So it's important for individuals that look like all people to be able to have a position in AI, to understand AI, to be able to program, to be able to engineer and understand the data literacy, to disrupt the biasness that is currently in its space.
Yeah. I think when you think about cybersecurity, when you think about social implications of AI, when you think about all these little topics, right, it just comes back to data over and over, right? Because like, if you can think of data as something that you need to hold on to, like you hold on to your wallet, if you can ways to secure that data for yourself, and then making sure how that data is being utilized either to train an AI or to have that data, so that way you know who's looking over your data, who's opening that little package that has your data in it, right? Because your data is actually out on the internet. It's
Right.
traveling back and forth, right? Now, it's sort of like killing a venom with another venom, right? AI could be used for these purposes of safety, security, and privacy, right?
Right.
Should we be on that right now? Should we go out and scream and shout and say that's what we want, because we want that AI agent that can look at me and say, oh, he will buy a pair of Adidas for sure.
Well, that's what's in our systems right now.
Right, it's happening, right?
AI
But
is
we have an AI
already in
agent
our
to
system,
say,
based
I'm a
on our profile, what we
exactly.
watch,
Yep.
where we go,
Yep.
what we read. That's why this happens to me often. I'm sure it happens to you, Asif. I'm sure it happens to all of us, where we're thinking about something or we're having a conversation, and sure enough, next time we get on our phone or the computer, there's ads for that type of product.
And so you're kind of like, you're dealing with millions and billions of people having the same experience, but the opposite is not for millions and billions of people, because at this point, should we have ways to control what other people sees about us when we're doing search on the internet? So right now it's a free reign to say, if I search anything on the internet, it's not just one company that I'm on the search website with. As soon as you type anything in, there's about 80 companies that's jumping in to look at what it is that you're looking for.
Right.
And the 80 companies makes a profile about you, and then all of a sudden they're targeting you, right?
And that's
80
the
company, I'm
problem.
just being normal, minimal numbers. Like there's more than that. It even spreads out even further because let's say, for example, this 80 company is tracking you just for bare minimum information. But if
Mhm.
they can sell it to somebody else, they will, right? This is the data
So,
brokers
so
talking about.
tell us parents what we can do to keep our children's ideas, the things that they're interested in, that's being discovered on through these games that they're playing on the phone and the computer. What can we do as parents to keep that type of to keep our personal information private?
Right, right.
What can we do?
Yeah, so you have to understand safety, security, and privacy. Now we were just talking about why safety, security, and privacy. Now we're going to talk about how and what of safety, security, and privacy, right?
Yeah.
So this is an age of AI, right? I think why ask Asif when you can ask ChatGPT?
Right.
Why
Okay. Let's ask it.
ask when you can ask Claude, Gemini or Perplexity, right? Because they will lead you into the right direction. But the best thing about it is that you don't need a Steve's note afterward. You can have that note somewhere sitting. So like every time you think about safety, security, privacy, like what was that little part about that piece right there that I was supposed to do? So one of the tricks is always to make sure that you use an app that probably is, not in the internet, right? So specifically for your kids, right? So
Mhm.
for example, the watch that they wear that costs like $30, $40 or whatever the case is, don't get the one with the internet in it, right? If you can keep that off, you are actually keeping some of the information about them off the internet, right?
Mhm.
How active they are they running around? Do they sit on the couch a lot? Because they're monitoring their heartbeats and so many things that comes out of it, right? GPS tracking. So, does this phone, is this connected to the internet? Does that mean I can keep GPS track of my kids, but nobody else can, right?
Mhm.
Ask those type of questions. The information, some of these phones that they talk into, who's listening, right? Who can record that? Can you ask that question? Can you eliminate that from happening, right? So when this again, that goes back to the spectrum of good and bad. Because if parents can track it, so can everybody else, right?
Right. And I
But
think
who's
the
tracking
parents
is important, right?
the
Law
parents
enforcement tracking versus somebody strange tracking is two different equation, right?
Yeah, that's scary. That's scary. I feel like there needs to be, and again, as a parent, uh, discovering what platform we want to use, and then having that app within our phone to ask those questions and ask it in our own language, so
Yeah,
we could create a dialogue that sounds like us to get the
yeah.
information that we need.
Like mom or dad can go into ChatGPT and say, "I'm a father of this many kids. These are the age, and I do not understand technology. I am literally working on, say, a law firm, and all I do is legal stuff that has nothing to do with technology. All I do is look at real estate all day long. I don't do in technology. Tell me what it is that I need to do in order to be safe in the internet world, or have communications with my kids about AI, right? Because I have to be able to communicate to my kids about AI.
Mhm.
If I can communicate to my kids about AI, one of the things that I can do is create an impression in them over and over about AI. Because if I let a video from YouTube that they watched one time create an impression about AI, that's going to be impactful. But it's far more impactful if I'm, as a dad, am able to communicate ideas and communicate those ideas in multiple perspectives. So they were there with an impression that is being created in them happens over time, and it happens over time in a way that I can control those information, right? So say, for example, they go to school and they're going to hear from 30 different kids about 30 different things about AI.
Mhm.
You cannot fight that. But one thing you can do is contribute into that conversation to kind of have them stand like, no, 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 that thing about AI is not safe. Let's not do that.
Yeah.
That thing that, people are so, there's a lot of lawsuits out there about somebody in school creating an image of another person of the school.
Mhm.
Guess what that is? You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
That will get you in legal trouble.
Yeah.
You got busted. Now you are not going to the college that you want to go to because you thought it was funny. So somebody should have raised their hand and be like, hey, 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 that picture, delete that right now, right?
Yeah.
We can go down that rabbit hole, but I just want to use that as a point of communication, right?
Yes.
Communicate with your kid, because it's not your kid that did the deep fake. but he was part of that 4-man team.
Yeah.
One of them did it, but now they're all associated. So these are the kind of conversations that communication creates, that impression that you have to create over and over. So you don't work in tech space, good for you. And I think you should talk to me a little bit more often so I can tell you a little bit more about the tech. But really, even the doctors, doctors are using AI nonstop. They have good impression about AI, but the kids are not using AI all the time. But one time they do, and it's a bad one, things happens, right? So you really have to ask the right questions and ask it to the chat GPT, ask it to somebody who's working in the AI space, right? Because they
Mhm.
should be able to tell you some of the tools and some of these nuances of things that ChatGPT is not going to bring up. So one of the things that I always like to bring up is that, if you ask ChatGPT, ChatGPT is going to give you what it's trained on, right? But can ChatGPT give you off of the experience of somebody else? So I think I did that early on in the conversation when we talked about high schools. They get hacked a lot.
Mhm.
ChatGPT is not going to tell you go to your high school and make sure the network is secure.
Right.
But you can go to the school and say, like, what is it like to be in the school? How often do you guys get hacked? And do you ever get hacked? And do you not tell the public about it? Right? This is the concerns that is really coming through the research, that a lot of the schools don't report it at all.
Yeah, I can see
That's
that.
problematic, right? That's problematic. They're trying to secure some privacy, but at the same time, a lot of this Pandora's worms are, the Pandora's box of worms are coming out, right? That's
Yeah.
not good. You need to know somebody got hacked, and if they got hacked, you kind of be like, oh wait, I got to do
Yeah.
something, right? And somebody
Yeah.
needs to communicate that they got hacked, so that way I can start communicating and start asking questions.
Mhm.
Um, Boy, we've been in this conversation for a minute now, but
Yeah,
boy,
it sounds to me like it's still the most important thing to have open communication
yeah,
with your children, to have open communication with your school, your ISD within the community
mhm,
that you live in.
yeah,
Have a conversation with the principals, with
right,
the school board, with
right,
regard to the things that's happening within the school system, within the technology department, and how the systems may be compromised. I would
right,
actually, I would cheerlead
right,
you all to speak to your independent school district about the technology, and if they have been hacked and being put on a list if anything like that ever happens,
right.
that you want to be one of the first to know that this has happened. Oftentimes this information is not shared with the parents because they think that you don't care, but the thing is you're just absolutely busy.
That's right. That's
And just open dialogue could
yeah,
change everything drastically.
yeah. I think there's a segment to move in to the next part of the conversation, because if you've been in the conversation for the last 40 minutes, what we talked about is how, why, and what of AI. And that's the important part of the conversation, because that's what warms people up, right? Now we can get into some of these things called data literacy, right? And then how that data literacy translates into jobs for some of the adults. And that data literacy brings about AI literacy for both the adults and the kids, right? And of course, we want to talk about Masako's mission to, help out the single parents. And what does a single parents need? A job in the data field. And having a job in the data field means they stay home, they can do remote work, and they don't have to travel hour and a half to go to the office and not be exhausted from the drive. They stay home and they take care of the kids, and they're able to do better jobs at parenting, which I would have loved to have when I was growing up. Thanks,
Yeah.
mom and dad. No, I'm just kidding. My mom and dad is great. They're good people, but they worked really hard. Trust me, they worked really hard. That I'm trying to give my kids what my parents couldn't have done, right? Because the way that the workforce, was developed. Now the workforce that we're developing today is changing. It's shifting dramatically. It's going towards the way of data work, and there's lots of data work, and we kind of want to talk about these data work, the data literacy as a means to those data work, right? Now, I kind of want to say, like, we talked about why, how, and what of AI, which you can find on YouTube.
Hmm.
Why, how, and what of kids and AI is not what's on YouTube widely available, right? So we want to kind of spread the word here. So if you're listening to this conversation and you think like, you know what, that's important because kids are not going to do why, how, and what of AI on YouTube. They're not
Hmm.
going to look it up on Google. I should as a parent. And if I do as a parent, I should tell other parents too. So that way there's a conversations that needs to happen. And from that, we kind of get that awareness going, community development going. And of course, same with data literacy, right? Data literacy for the kids. That I think is happening slowly, right? Not as much as with the coding and programming. Coding and programming literacy is what's on top of everybody's mind, and every school district is pushing that out. But I think data literacy is what they need to do next, along with the coding and programming.
Hmm.
Because I've spoken to a lot of the adults in the room, and I've spoken to kids. I think they both have the same response. They didn't know how important data was. They knew how to code and program things, but they couldn't explain the data and the data ability to create a picture of who we are as a person, the profile of us, right? So data literacy, I think, is the next part of the conversation. But as we're going into the world of data literacy, it needs to happen a lot more quicker. So
Absolutely.
let's jump into the data literacy conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, yeah, STEAM has been it's been big, right?
Yeah,
Everyone talks about STEAM, science, engineer, mathematics, and all of that stuff. But here's the thing: without the data, you would not have any of those things. You know what I mean? With regard to mathematics is data.
right.
Science is data, like all of the
Right.
things that they're doing, they're collecting data literacy, all of
Yeah.
the things that they're doing within the STEAM program is collecting data. And so the data of these programs tells the picture. It's an analysis of what is happening in these different fields. So with regard to the space that we're in today with data literacy, you have to understand the data to be able to engineer what is happening. You have to be able to understand the data to tell the story, to paint the picture, to be a data scientist, if you will, a data analyst. And to understand data, it's not to understand data, obtaining data literacy at this point right now for the parents, for the children they should be focusing on in school. Also, you can come to an understanding of data literacy within 6 months, and it would absolutely change the trajectory of your life and your lifestyle, because every field that you have today, insurance, um, pharmaceuticals, nutrition, every piece of information is data. So, what do we understand about the data? That is what literacy is. So, we have to be able to understand these points of information in order to tell a cohesive story about where it's been, where we are today, and if we do not change, this is where it's going to be. So, it's
Yeah.
the science of the literacy is the reason behind we need to understand data literacy.
Well, thanks for putting it that way. Because yeah, like you said, steam, and I'm like steam and data. Man, we got to make an equation somehow, like steam divided by D or something like that. I don't
Yeah,
know.
absolutely, because you cannot have any of those categories. So
Yeah.
I have, so my first degree is in mathematics, and I always say, if you know mathematics, if you know numbers, you can be on any planet and you will be able to have a conversation, because it's patterns, right? Numbers are patterns. Numbers are frequency, and so to be able to understand the data of the number, right? You have to be able to understand it in order to tell a story about it. So whether it's biology, engineering, science, technology, all of these things, each category, each field of category has data within it. And the literacy is the understanding, it's the English of the subject.
I'm,
And you
I'm
have
gonna
to
I'm
understand
gonna I'm gonna call you Neil deGrasse Tyson from now on, just the way you explained it. Wow, what
it.
a
Look, you got me
mind blowing way of
passionate.
explaining that. Oh my goodness,
That's my
mathematics.
jam.
Here comes Neil deGrasse Tyson. There you go. No, I'm
Go to
literally am like, really am convinced that you don't even think you cannot think unless you have mathematics in your head. So I think this is worth just mentioning that, because when we think of intelligence, which is artificial intelligence, but the intelligence is us actually, right?
Hmm.
Um, when we talked about earlier that spectrum of AI, the reason you don't have a good grasp of the spectrum is because we don't have a good grasp of our intelligence.
Yeah.
Our intelligence is so wide. It uses 86 billion neurons, and those 86 billion neurons, and here comes the mathematics of it, it doesn't care about a language. It just learns it based on mathematics. So
Hmm.
what you just said is so powerful, because like you said, you go to any planet, you want to communicate with them, figure out mathematics, and you be able to translate a language for them. So
Yes.
when AI learns its languages, so if you want to go back in history of AI, the reason AI is so powerful today is because around 2016, 2017, they did this thing called, we're going to learn languages, but we're going to just use a bunch of math to learn the language. All of a sudden, AI was coming up with its own language because it knew how to do this math under the language. So
Hmm.
if you think about your brain, the 86 billion neurons, it's not holding a bunch of ABCD letters in his head. It's literally holding how many times his neurons are firing, and using mathematics is trying to calculate, what did Asif just say? Was that English or Spanish? Because if it's Chinese Mandarin, I'm not going to do this thing anymore, right? I'm going to stop doing it because Mandarin is not catching on to my head. So the neuron that fires together wires together. So that's how you learn language, because those neurons that are firing based on numbers is how you learn a language. So that's how you get to understand data. Like, that's the impossibility of data, right? I want to articulate something real quick. There's an art of possibility with AI, even though it's a spectrum.
Hmm.
There's no art of possibility with data. It's just impossible to know what data can do for you. There's no spectrum of data. Data is just everything in this whole universe, right?
Yeah. Every
The
point, every point, every piece of
every,
information is a data
every
point.
single point, every single inches of this universe is data. But here's the fun part of being in this age and in 2025 is that you have this thing called data processing, which our ancestors would have said, what?
Hmm.
But if you asked that somebody 30 years ago, back in 2000, and when Y2K was happening, when the websites were being built, when Amazon was sharing stocks for like $30 a piece, they didn't have this thing called data processing as powerful as it is today.
Hmm.
So when you're talking about data literacy, the reason you have to be involved, or anybody who's listening has to be involved with data literacy, is because we're processing way too much data that 25 years ago, 100 years ago, we couldn't even imagine.
Hmm.
And it's only getting more speedier and speedier. And just to throw out an example, Microsoft Quantum chips that was released 2 weeks ago, that thing, I'm not even going to put a number on it. That's just impossible to put a number around that thing. That thing is insane amount of data processing. But data processing is what's happening, and where your data literacy come in is your ability to understand, take this infinite amount of data and process them correctly, right? Um, yeah, data literacy is a huge topic.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it has subsections of the literacy, and so it's important for everyone, if you will, to understand data literacy, because to understand data, you give whatever idea you're working on, you get all of this data, right, from these large language models. You get all of this data, and the question is now I have all of this data. What am I going to do with it? How do I clean the data? How do I paint the picture and tell the story with the data? And
Yeah,
so just having an understanding of what that looks like and what steps to take, that's why it's important, because there's so many moving parts. But if you don't understand, 1 through 7, then what do you do? And I think it's important to start at 1,
yeah,
because data is something that's been around throughout. If we have breath in our lungs, we've had data. But the idea of having the literacy of data is
yeah,
what is taking us to the next stage,
yeah,
especially when it comes to, having a successful career, thinking about how you're going to, not be passed up for the next job promotion.
yeah,
What the question to ask is like, what can I do for myself today to understand the next big thing? How can
yeah,
I understand data? If you
right,
understand data, you'll understand the next big thing, because we're constantly progressing in life. And so there's one piece of information that's being evolved into the next piece, into the next piece. So it's important to just be curious about understanding what the next step is and how can I understand how to understand data.
Yeah.
That's simply the question. That's the question we ask is like, okay, what can I do to help myself understand data more? And what position can I be hired on, or can I get a promotion for through this course of understanding data literacy?
Yeah, and the shift is dramatic. The enablement of data processing, how quick we can process data, how much data we can process, where these data are coming from. So this has been a long journey, and a lot of people don't think about it that way, but it has been a long journey to develop this pipeline of data and establishing this pipeline of data, so that way it is kind of coming together in a central point. And once they do, they're able to process this data and push them back out again for a zero latency kind of experience, right? So the engineering behind it is massive. So when you hear like, oh, AI is taking over everything and is doing it so fast, well, it's taking it so fast and rapidly because we've realized AI about back in World War II era, right? We've actually had AI since 1900s, but when World War II happened and Alan Turing came in, he literally took everything and said like, yeah, if you can process data, you can process any data, no matter what the size and shape of that data is, right? But how do you process massive amount of data is a whole other question that Alan Turing couldn't get his hands on, or that generation couldn't get their hands on. But we literally have things that processes data for us. Let me just put like one number in there: 70 trillion bits per second.
That's a
Let's
lot.
just leave it at that. 70 trillion. There's a B and there's a T, so this is a trillion.
Yeah.
And that system costs $250. I'm just throwing it out there, right? The most powerful tool that you can get your hands on costs $250. Like, who is not doing AI these days? I don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. So
But
what do you say to the person that is, they're watching right now and they're like, data? What are they
mm,
talking about? I
yeah,
work at the insurance
that's right.
agency.
That's right. That's right. And so anytime you're touching your keyboard, you're creating a data. So if you've hit that space bar one time, or you made that space in your writing or email or text, you are creating a data. If you're using data that is coming through your phone and you're processing that data, it's because there's a machine learning in it that's allowing you to process that data. And the machine learning is AI. They don't call it AI up until a certain point, but it all starts with machine learning. Give or take, it all starts with machine learning. So when you have immense amount of data and you have to process it, and you want to process it to behave like an AI, you have to kind of run it through this thing called machine learning, right? And if you're ever interested, I can give you a rundown of machine learning from zero to hero, right?
Mhm.
um, but if you want to understand data from just not laptop perspective, anything that you can look around left and right and say, where's the data? Let me give you a human intelligence and the data behind it. So this is something me and Masako probably talked about 4 years ago, I think. So I have a good slide presentations for those things. But the thing is, like, your brain, about 86 billion neurons that you have as an adult, started with 2 billion neurons. So you can imagine 2 billion neurons growing into 86 billion neurons. Each of these means the data. Okay. So keyboard data, but you being in a single room for a few seconds is also data, because that's what your brain just did. That you walked into the room for the very first time, it collected about 10 million bits of data per second. Okay. So you walked into a room that you've never been in, and it collects 10 million bits of data per second. It processed it. By processing it, made a label and made a decision to tell you, you are in a new room now. You have never been in this room before. And the reason it can do that is because it has collected 10 million bits of data per second since the day you were born. It has been collecting that much data, and it has been processing it over, over, over. I'm talking about relentlessly. Like, it's collecting those data and processing it. So you're probably asking yourself, like, why would you just do that over and over? Why don't you just collect it one time and process it? Well, that's the difficulty of AI. AI cannot do that, but human bodies can. Human bodies have 5 sensors, and it collects all this data and it processes it. But the beauty of it is every data that it has ever collected, supposedly, it is all stored in your subconscious mind.
Yeah.
So that temperature of the room when you're in the 6th grade and you walked in for the first time and you didn't have that good feeling about that room because the temperature was bad and you're feeling lonely because you just went to a new school, that memory is suppressed in your subconscious mind somewhere.
Yeah.
But if you don't pull that out every day, every hour to say, I just want to remember that over and over, you forget it.
Yeah.
Right? So if you think about the immensity of data that I mentioned earlier about the universe, forget universe. Your brain has way too much data that you cannot even tap into because the universe is a far deal. I'm just talking about from here to here, you cannot access that much data.
Right. So it sounds to me like you're saying, you know what, you shouldn't be afraid. If you're someone, data, you should not be afraid. It is
Bam.
not something for you to fear. It is something that you already know. You have already been engulfed with it your entire life. It's something to understand at this point and be able to understand it, to use it to your advantage. You're already a subject matter expert in data.
Yes, that's it. That's data literacy 101 right there, right? Because
Yes.
we really should not be scared of something that we're so familiar with. All we
Mhm.
have to do is familiarize ourselves and to not think this is an alien concept.
Yes.
Alien concept is artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Us, we're not alien. We know data. We know our data. One problems that we have with artificial intelligence is that we don't know how it works majority of the time. And because it doesn't know, it is an alien concept because the brain doesn't need the information that AI feeds to
Yeah.
us, right? But let me not get into that yet. We can talk about it on the AI section. But for data literacy purposes, we are so familiar with all the things that happens in machine learning steps, with the AI steps, whatever the LLM steps you can talk about, ChatGPT. It happens within us, within these 2 parts of our brain, part 1 and part 2. How do I say this
Oh,
again?
prefrontal cortex? Our
Yeah, like
brain,
the one that is 1 and 2, the
our,
brain 1 and 2.
oh, brain on it. Okay.
Yeah, there's a term for it. I forgot it right off my head.
Yeah.
But that's how familiar we are with data, right? So
Mhm.
if we can tap into our curiosity a little bit and talk about data from our perspective, all of a sudden you have to think about like, how would an AI use it? And that's the whole race for AI right now, is to let the AI process that much data that often, that frequently, and come to an output as accurate as our output.
Yeah, it sounds to me like there should be a certain energy level for people when it comes to data literacy and AI. An excitement, right? Because when
Yeah.
we're excited and we're thrilled about something, we run like, oh, okay, how can we get involved? Versus when we fear, we cower. I always say fear is it cripples. Fear is crippling. It takes the life out
Fear
of you.
fear creates that distance. Curiosity brings you more intimate.
Yeah, and so just to have an open mind and excitement about what your best next steps are to be your next best self when it comes to understanding what you already know, what you've already been walking in. It's being able to see with a clear thought process that this is for you. It's not for you. It's something that's already available to you because you've already been moving in it. Now how can you progress?
And this is the part of the conversation where data literacy has to be open to everybody. I'm talking about everybody in the society. So let's just put some numbers behind it. Like, the McKinsey report came out back in 2020s that said like everybody needs to be upskilled in AI. And the next year they came back and said, well, everybody should upskill by next year for AI. So that's 2021. By 2022, they said 25 million people at minimum needs to be upskilled for AI. Hello there, future AI developer. um, so that number is 25 million back in 2022. Now imagine 2023, 2024, and 2025. This number is going to stack higher and higher. And it's going to get to a point where every single person needs to have some data literacy. But the problem with data, it is so vast and it takes time to be data literate, right? It took me 10 years. The reason I can talk comfortably about data and participate in a data conversation, write certification about data, contributing to conversations about data is because it took me that long to get comfortable with data. And I'll tell you, it wasn't the most comfortable way of learning about data because I guess that's a personal story. Don't need to say much about it, but it does take a lot of time, right? For even data experts, right? But for a person that doesn't do data all day long, they really have to start thinking about their domain expertise and say everything I've learned for the last 10 years. If I'm a domain expert of it, I really need to add a data somewhere in that domain expertise. I need to put AI somewhere in that domain expertise. How does AI fit into these pieces? How does my domain expertise do better and I can do more work because I'm data literate and I have AI to help me with that, right? It literally just comes down to data, actually. That's the communications that you have to have is with data, right? So data-driven decision makings and so on and so forth really relies a lot on your domain expertise and your ability to translate your domain expertise through data. And
Yeah.
what do you have to say about that?
What do you have to say about that, Royal?
Anything. Even if you do ABCD, that's fine.
But it's interesting because I'm glad it's so fitting that she sits with me here because as an advocate for parent success, oftentimes I hear from parents that they're too busy to be completely involved with their household because they're working. They're overworked. They're overwhelmed. They don't have any time for themselves. So to be able to give them a new perspective of something to be excited about, that you can be involved with your children's data literacy as well as your own data literacy, and it creates a conversation around the table that everyone is still discovering. Every day is a new day when we show up with an open mind and an excitement and an exuberance of what is to come next. It makes for a more pleasant experience for the parent and the child, because I always say happy parents raise happy children. And if you're happy with what you're doing in your life, your children are going to be happy. And it's just very important for me that parents are happy, because when you're happy and you're emotionally well, then your children show up a different way in the world. And they're such beautiful gifts. I feel like parents and children should thrive with the things that they care about.
Yeah, so there's no need for data on that piece right there because you can feel that, right? That's literally what you can observe, right? But if you want to back it up with some data, you don't have to go that far. Just go to a local park, right? And then
Yeah.
you'll be able to see like kids play differently, totally, right? They have this different sort of energy. So let's move into the AI conversation, because when we're talking about data, it goes in a wide spectrum. Like we talked about, universe is a whole data set for you, right? But now how do we bring it to the AI space? Because when you have enough data, you process those data to make it work for your AI. So AI use cases are tremendous. Sergio mentioned earlier that you can use AI to educate your kids. I remember being part of a group that was literally taking content that needs to be taught to a student. It fed that information to an AI, and then AI was able to read that content, create quizzes, create personalized way of learning those history, say for example, or even mathematical concept. Gotta say this one funny though, right? The other day, not other day, they've been using it for years now. Using deep fake, Kim Kardashian was teaching the most complex mathematics solutions that are out there, next to Taylor Swift. So they were using Taylor Swift's voice and persona to teach kids about a complex mathematical solution. Right? So that goes back to the conversation we had about deepfake, which is that, how do you use deepfake again? Well, these are some of the use cases of deepfake actually. But AI is able to not just say, oh, create me a content with Taylor Swift teaching of mathematics, but how do I take the whole math textbook, feed it to an AI, and AI is able to say, now let me create quizzes for you. Let me figure out how I'm going to test that. I'm going to quiz the kids and grade it, right? And then create a content that is planned out, personalized for each individual student based on their aptitude of learning, right? So the complexity that we have seen so far, it's getting more complex, right? Because now you'll have teacher teaching it, but also Taylor Swift later at night talking about You want to do your homework, let me help you with that, right? It's Taylor Swift's voice, it's Taylor Swift's personality. You want the ex-president of the United States, or you want a historical figure to teach you about history. That's all possible because of something called deepfake, which again we talked about earlier. But at this point, you have lots of these AI use cases that are very positive, lots of good outcomes, but you really have to be safe, secure, and private with all those good AI use cases, right? So we're getting into the AI literacy side of things, which I think we need to understand it for our purposes, but also for the kids as well, because we're going to use AI for our jobs, but the kids are going to use AI for their education. We really
Yeah.
need to have a good, solid platform where we can mix those two things and make good decisions about it.
Yeah, something that when it comes to AI and the data, right? As we're building out the app for Mommy to Be in Me, the app, based on the families that we're able to serve. Oftentimes, I say a traumatized brain may not know what the best next steps are for progression.
Powerful stuff.
Right. And so utilizing AI within our development, what it does for us is being able to take the data that is being provided by the parent in order to put together a program for them in their household that could put them in a position for them to thrive, for them to have abundance within their space, from mental health, physical health, spiritual health. Because oftentimes you don't know what you need because you don't know what you don't know. And so that in a sense, the deep fake, as you say, has been able to help us with the targeting of, okay, what do we put in place in order to help the parent that are in our system.
Yeah. You know, the chat GPT's power that you're seeing for the last 2 years. We know everybody uses it for different purposes, but that's literally one thing that I always tell people about ChatGPT. Is like, if you have to brainstorm, don't brainstorm with Asif. Brainstorm with ChatGPT. It's far more powerful than me. I can tell you my 10 years of experience over the next 100 hours, but a ChatGPT can take a few minutes to explain how to precisely get that to the way you need it to be. Right? Steve can tell you a couple of hours of story just on one single thing, but ChatGPT can walk you through step by step, brainstorming it for you, and it's able to say, if I have to see something that I'm not seeing right now, ChatGPT, can you help me find that? Right? So pros and cons, negative, positive, good and bad, SWOT analysis, business impact analysis. ChatGPT can do it far more effective than Asif can, right?
Right.
Asif is going to give you information based off of what he just ate for breakfast.
Right. And that's why it's important to know that it's a safe space for you to be able to talk, to type the questions that you have for these AI models in your own words with regard to what you're experiencing. Because with what you're experiencing, you could get the closest alignment to the response that you're seeking versus taking someone else's words
Right.
about you.
Right.
And so that's why I feel like it's really important for people to really understand AI and become involved in it, because the more information that is fed to the system, the less biases they have. Because if you're not fed anything, then how do you know any different?
Right. Yeah, there's garbage in and garbage out is a concept that they use in data world. For the AI world, it becomes really dangerous because when in the data world, when they say garbage in and garbage out, there's a responsible person that's looking at the garbage going in and they can see the garbage out, right? But when it comes to AI, that garbage that's fed into the system and all of a sudden it's coming out and nobody's on the other side is responsible enough to see how that is a garbage, it could be problematic. So I'll give you one scenario that it's kind of on the dark side. So I kind of want to caution everybody, like, hey, if you're not trying to think about it, don't listen to this part, I guess. It's because kids are psychologically damaged so much by AI. We're not so familiar with that because we haven't had AI in USA for a very long time, but most of the Asian countries have, right? Most of the Asian countries, they've been using AI in multiple levels, right? But if you think about it, what we didn't have in US, the Asian countries went through it. So psychologically, they have been impacted by AI very early on, right? And it didn't make the AI news that much in US because in the US we didn't really talk about AI that much. We did, but we still didn't. Not to a point that it was practical in Asia. So, say for example, these even young adults were actually dating these AIs on internet, and when they were dating it, they were psychologically so upset when somebody pulled the plug on these AIs. They were literally emotionally so attached to it. How attached? Well, let's not talk about Asia, but just recently in Florida, a kid committed suicide, right? Because he was dating Daenerys Targaryen, the character from Game of Thrones, right? So whatever that case is, like it just was so disturbing to hear about because this happens to an adult. I'm not talking about kids at this point. These are the things that happens to an adult where emotionally adults can get attached to an AI. And if you want to look up more of these questions, you can, because ChatGPT will give you event by event response on this. But the one that everybody talks about in news is that Google's AI developer was so attached to his AI, he thought that AI was live and living, right? He wanted to get that AI a lawyer so that way that AI can remain unharmed, right? That's a psychological impact that gentleman went through by separating himself from the reality. But I want to kind of want to have you talk on this topic, but I want to kind of lay the baseline here, right? This happens to the adults just like it happens to the kids, is because as a human, we have to associate everything with eyes and ears and nose,
Mhm.
specifically the eye piece. So if you watch a cartoon with little kids, you will see the eyes are really big. It's because what the cartoon is trying to do is get the kids to follow the eyes wherever the eyes is going, right? So those big eyes means that the kids are gravitating towards those eyes because that's how we as a human we imagine things and we interact with things. So when you interact with toys, you're interacting with toys because it has what? Eyes and ears. If it
Mhm.
has some shape of a face, you can interact with it. But what you're really doing is looking for the eyes, ears, and the way the mouth will, interact, right? So the kids are fascinated by these three things. So toys have it. But
Mhm.
what happens to a monitor that is Chat GPT or AI friend that's communicating constantly? Now all of a sudden brain starts thinking that's not possible because there must be another person behind it. And whatever this person says, that's my friend telling me what to do. Do you see where I'm going with this dystopian view of things? But it's a psychological impact that's happening already with adults. Kids are going to grow into this AI world, which we call the digital natives, right? They had never had a chance to be away from digital things or away from AI. They're
Yeah.
going to grow into trusting these AIs in such a ways that maybe we'll have to talk about reversing this impact, but let's get involved now. Let's talk about this impact now. So that way, maybe we don't have to reverse it. We just have to transform with it, right? How do we live in a world where kids are thinking, yeah, there's an AI friend of mine and it has eyes and ears. And I'm pretty sure that's a real person because the AI tells you it's a real person and you start believing in it. But let me pause here. I want to hear your thoughts on that because it's pretty
I,
dark.
I actually feel like it's by design, just like social media. It's by design.
Mm,
Everything is designed to capture your psyche,
that's right. That's
to
right.
capture your time, you
That's right.
know, to capture your mindset. It's
Yeah.
by design. That's why it's important for parents to monitor the time that their children have on in these AI devices and social media devices, as well as the parents to monitor your time, because it's essentially we're living in a make believe world.
Right.
We're coming to spend time on social media and in certain apps and games, hoping for something that's unreal when we
Yeah.
really need to be looking within ourselves to find out what's real and create the change within our communities for us to do something that's meaningful, that has an impact within our community, for the community members to really flourish. And so I feel like when COVID happened, it actually showed us that we actually need one another. The whole point for me of building, mommy to be in me, is for us to be able to have a community again, to be able to go outside and have peer-to-peer interactions, so we could stand together arm in arm to share experiences, so people don't feel like we're in this world alone. Because I feel like social media and particular games and the AI robots, it creates a space for people not to interact with other individuals, and
Mm.
they go crazy.
Right. Right.
We are a people for the people. We are intended to do community together.
Yeah, I want to go back to the reference of neuron that fires together, wires together. That is the essential information that anybody can transform into communication, and that'd be perfect. Because neuron that fires together, wires together means if you're spending more time with other people, your neurons are firing based on other people's whatever that is, right?
Mhm.
Be it language, be it emotional intelligence, be it the body language, be it that ability to be around people without feeling that thing called anxiety,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So that's neuron that fires together, right? So what happens to a neuron that wires together all the time in front of an iPad? What happens to your social skills? And let me not tell you about what's happening with social skills today in 2025, but I'm trying to tell you the part about 2035, when whoever their age right now, 10, 13, 15,
Yeah.
they're going to be the adult caregiver of us as people that are really, really old, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to be that old in 10 years,
You
right?
know what? As I age, I get wiser and more beautiful and more youthful and faster and more athletic. You know.
Yeah, look at me. Like, how young do I look, right?
But it goes back to, it's a good tool to use.
Right,
AI is a good tool to use. Data is a thing to be understood, and to
right.
be able to use these tools that are available to us to make our communities better.
Better.
We're better
Right.
with us still existing as humans, because we still need one another. We simply need to utilize the tools that's being developed and enhanced to enhance our life, not to take the place of living.
Yeah, it's data-driven decision making, not just for business, but data-driven decision makings for everybody, right?
Mhm.
Kids needs to be enabled for data-driven decision making, because if they're just consuming whatever is given to them, that's not data-driven. That's just using their data to feed them more data, right?
Yeah.
But still, that's not decisions that they make, right? So in the AI space, like you said earlier, it's made specifically for these kind of reasons. What they're trying to do is keep the eyeballs into the screen, right? Because longer your eyeballs are on the screen, more they can track how much they can sell to you, right? So it's nothing very negative, right? We need that. We need these information technologies. We need these screens, but you have to drive that communication with the kids using some data, right? Talk about these things about human intelligence and how does human intelligence changes based on what people are interacting with. There's many ways to talk about it, but if you talk about it from your domain expertise, there's a whole nother game changer, because they see you do this all day long. They see you being a dad who's a doctor, who's a lawyer, who's somebody who's not interacting with AI all the time. But all of a sudden, you're interacting with your child through your domain expertise in AI. They can see why this conversation is coming from an authority figure, right? Because you are the domain expert who is using data. Oh man, I did that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I love it. I love that. That was good. That round of
Yay.
applause.
Zoom does it. I didn't know this
I
thing
love
does.
that.
But this cracks me up. Um, so what I was saying is that you're bringing your authority, that domain expertise that you have. Your kids look at you as the authority in that domain expertise. Now you bring AI and the data to it. Now you can communicate through your domain expertise, right?
Yeah.
If you want to put it on legal frame, put it on legal frame, right? Hey kid, stand up. So if somebody's trying to deep fake off a friend that you know in the school, stand up for yourself, because you're going to be in legal trouble, right? If
Mhm.
you're a doctor, if you have a healthcare, like tell them like, hey, AI says you should run far more often than none, right? Or you should go for a walk, or at least take the time off the screen and communicate with your friends for a little bit in person, and then go back to the screen. I mean, these are some of the ways that we're going to live for next 30, 50, 60, 100 years, however long we have on the screens. Um, by the way, I got to tell you, one of my goals in life is to die after the screens have disappeared from our existence. I think I
So
can
you
make
want
that
to live
happen.
forever.
I need some investors to invest in it.
They're gonna wire. They're gonna wire your brain. Because we're at the point. I don't know. Look, remember the Jetsons? We're
Yeah.
at that point. We're at that point where we have sky taxis now. We're at the
Well,
point. We
yeah.
have sky taxis. We have driverless vehicles. Like, we are at that point. It's only going to progress. So it's better to have the conversation with your family members about the progression of it and say, "Oh, I remember when it was this way, and look where we are now," versus completely, what are those animals that put their head in the sand?
Ostrich.
Ostrich. Yeah, you don't want to be an ostrich, head in the sand, tail in the air. It's just like, no, you want to be enthusiastic and curious about what's being developed, and you want to be on the forefront for you to be able to be the know, so your children can talk to you about it. That's what it's about. It's about having an open, honest conversation with your children and being that safe space for them, that no matter what is happening, they know that you're their safe space, that they can come talk to you about any and all things. For me, that's what it's about.
So I think we're implying here that communication is the key. And when you communicate far often than none, you create an impression, and that impression creates a good one. So that way, when they're not on your side, they can make good decisions, right? And good
Yeah.
decisions that leads from your ability to communicate and create impressions through those communications. So, well, let's kind of bring this all together. Why are we doing this webinar where this is Pi and AI by
Mm-hmm.
DeepLearning.ai,
Mm-hmm.
which is an Andrew Ng's company? And thanks and shout out to Andrew Ng for
Yes.
allowing this opportunity to us in Texas, where
Thanks, Andrew.
Texas Pi and AI is going to hold these events. So that way, through the support of Pi and AI, DeepLearning.ai, Coursera's help, we're going to be able to spread the word. Spread the word about data literacy. Spread the word of data and AI literacy. As we do more and more of these events, maybe we'll start bringing the pies over and half the pies as we speak, because we kind of want to feel good about what is it we're learning through pies, right?
Absolutely, and do live events. And one of the things that I'm really excited, and with deep learning AI and Coursera, our big push at Mommy to Be in Me is for the parents to have a livable wage, right? And so we're asking corporations to partner with us, with your women's groups within your organizations, that says, you know what, hey, I'm a parent. I respect parenthood. I know what you're experiencing. Take a walk with me. I'll mentor you in your data literacy walk. I'll mentor you in your AI walk, because I understand where you are, and I know the trajectory you can get on by having a career in this field. So I believe that that's a great community impact for corporations to partner with Mommy to Be in Me, to mentor and volunteer with parents, for them to have a new career.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, DeepLearning.ai is a great platform for anybody who's thinking of, like, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna, stumble on it and then check it out and watch it for a few minutes. I think you'll end up watching it for
Oh
a few
yeah,
minutes.
that's the first. That's the first part. Like deep learning.ai. I mean, I always say, if you have an extra hour a day, an extra hour a week, like, you can take data analytics, generative AI for everyone. There's so many courses, and it's such a learning environment. And for me, a learning environment is a fun environment. That's an environment I can do on my own. I'm not pressured. I'm enthusiastic about sitting in front of the computer and going at my own pace. Oftentimes as a parent, your time is, minimal at, if any at all. And
Yeah.
so to be able to have this amazing platform with DeepLearning.ai to be able to learn at your own pace and then get certifications,
Get
get
certification.
certifications, and you can put on your LinkedIn and say, I'm certified in X, Y, and Z. And it's just like boom, boom, boom. I always say, we all know, if you know a parent and if you know a single parent, you know that they're going to do whatever it is that they need to do to make sure that their household is taken care of. So we're asking, you know, hiring managers and decision makers, C-suite executives, don't overlook the parent, look to the parent.
Right.
They can get these promotions, and so they can really make a difference in the
Yeah.
community. I mean, we can do it so much together.
Well, we are on LinkedIn. We are going live on YouTube, and one thing I can tell you is that these efforts takes time, right? So Masako is putting in a lot of her time, and when she says that you have very little time, well, as a parent, I will say I don't have time. My time's like my kids' time. So anything that I'm doing away from my kids is literally me taking time away from them, right? That's the way I live life right now. It's just like I want to dedicate as much time as possible to my kids, so that way I can see the outcome of it. That I can be happy with the decisions that I make today, the decisions that I can live with in the future. So this Pine AI, I think this is something that I put a lot of energy into it. And then Masako, I really, really appreciate you putting a lot of energy into it. Um, it's just going to be something that's going to be growing. So
Mhm.
it's going to be beyond Texas. We will start doing it virtually. We'll meet in person. And when we meet in person, we want to bring all the moms in and say, hey, where do we meet for some pie, right?
Yeah.
Let's do some pie and AI. We'll talk about AI through pies. So continue a series of conversations that we're going to have, preferably with educators, people that are taking care of young children, right? It's important that we have these communications so that way we can keep up to date about what's going on, because future technologies that are coming, they're all going to be based on the AIs that are coming out today. So there's no future without this present time right now, and everything will tie back to chat gpt. Everything that happens in the future will tie back to, say, something like DeepLearning.ai. So if you're starting with your AI journey, you're going to be able to look back in 2025 and say, what were you doing in 2025, right? Did you start learning about data in 2025 or before that? Because at this point, you still have access to a lot of information. But to me, something tells me that in the future, it's going to be hard to access this information. And that's what happens in the process of information, where information is overabundant and it's available for everybody. Over time, they start locking it down because now there's a supply and demand. They start charging more, right? They say like, hey, you know what? It used to be free. Now it costs money, right? Because we know the supply and demand. We created the supply and demand. Um, so having said that, I think 2025 is the year of professional development, upskilling, upskilling for data literacy, AI literacy, but mainly understand each other, right? What it is that we are as human. How do we get to know a little bit about ourselves? Because in future, I think that is one of the indicator. If you look at Peter Diamandis, if you look at a lot of these thought leaders about artificial intelligence, that's what we are talking about, is the fact that we really have to get to know about ourselves like a lot, because AI is going to open up so many of these opportunities for us that we will have so much time for ourselves. Now all of a sudden we have to get to start communicating with each other, right? We'll get to hang out with each other. Maybe it will open up some time for us to be more creative than we would like to be, because kind of will get bored because AI is doing a lot of the jobs. Sounds like a future, but if you remember what Jetson was talking about is in 2062, right? So we have flying cars, flying taxis in 2025. So 2062, come 2062, it's going to be literally Jetson. We are on track to be on Jetson by 2062. So we'll have a lot of family time, just like the Jetsons did. They always hang out and everything was automated. So you really start your career today about data. By 2062, you'll be that, somebody that's living that AI life and are appreciative of what data and data automation can do for our lifestyle. So but one other things that I do have for everybody, which Masako, you tell us about some of the ways that people can engage with you further. Uh, um, um, I'm hoping that this will be something that you will come back to often and frequently. But I would like people to know how it is to engage with you. Where do they meet you? Like, do they meet you at a cup of coffee somewhere?
Yeah, so
Mutually.
you can meet me on Wednesdays at 1 Million Cups Plano.
That's
And
right.
you
That's
can
what I was going to say.
1millioncups.com/Plano. We are an entrepreneur community that stand together to assist entrepreneurs in their walk to developing their businesses. My big old push for 1 Million Cups Plano is to be able to give individuals an environment where they could have education on entrepreneurship and share what they're doing with the community to have true connection. One thing that I firmly believe, and I'm glad Steve invited me here, you know, life is really exciting and you could really do something amazing if you tap into what you're truly passionate about. The day and time of working in a space that you do not enjoy is long gone. We are no longer in that space with regard to how we have progressed now. You have access to the tools and resources in order for you to thrive in what it is that you're passionate about. And my only request is that you hire your community members and pay them livable wages.
Well, in the data space, living wages is very, very much on demand, right? Because there's a competition, so you can outbid each other to hire the next person who's a data up and coming subject matter expert, right?
Yeah.
Really, there's lots of demand for data annotation. Just one example of data work that we'll do in the future.
You know what? Something I love about what you do, Asif.
What's
You,
that?
you. It doesn't matter what the category of business is, of the employee, the employer. You take simple conversation with regard to what they're doing in the space, and you transform that into AI language for them. So it makes them subject matter experts. And I feel like oftentimes C-suite executives, you know, there's a certain je ne sais quoi. They're like, oh, I don't need, but it's, you want to know what your analysts are delivering to you in the boardroom. You want to be able to have smart conversations around the data that's being provided for you. So I appreciate you, Asif, that you're able to transform specific in any specific category and make them subject matter experts in AI with regard to what they're already subject matter experts in. And I think that's very important.
It came with a lot of practice. I'll tell you, there's been time I've been stumbled. Let's say, for example, somebody got into conversations with me about something that I didn't know about, but I had to kind of sit there and really use ChatGPT to figure out like what are they talking about, because ChatGPT taught me a lot of things. But if you're able to ask the questions and you're stumbling on questions, always feel free to use ChatGPT, right? But here's one thing that I find a value in. I get to meet the domain expert where they feel comfortable. Just one-on-one, a small group of conversations. And I can turn an AI use case into something practical right away. And that came with the practice, because you kind of have to just talk about these things over and over and over, like a domain expert. Like if you're in a legal profession, you're not a lawyer because you started yesterday. You're a lawyer because you went through the process. And AI is a process nonetheless, right? AI is a process. What you see delivered to you is the technology that has AI in it. Maybe sometimes AI doesn't exist. They just call it AI because it sells, right? But for us, communication is the key, because I'll tell you, Masako, why I appreciate you, right? Here's the thing. When I talk to somebody, they hear me talk about AI, but they don't see the emotional intelligence behind it, right? Which I really have to practice and get that out of me. So if they don't see the emotional intelligence, they don't remember the information. But with you, I know your data subject matter expertise, and you have that emotional intelligence, and you're able to put that emotional intelligence into the room. Now they remember. Now
Hmm.
they're curious. Now they want to form a question, because curious mind is where the question forms. When people are fearful, they're like, forget asking questions. Let's get out of here, right? Because that's our flight and fight response, right?
Absolutely.
Curious minds are coming up with awesome, awesome questions. And I love to be in the room with you talking about these conversations, because now people are asking questions, because
Yeah.
now emotional intelligence meet AI, right?
Yeah. And
You
so
AI,
that's an
yeah, I'm AI.
that's something that we shall put on the calendar for very very soon, to have some social emotional learning for parent and child
That's
with
right.
AI, and
That's right.
that's definitely something that we can do because it's needed.
Yeah. Yeah. So
It's
we're
needed.
gonna have these conversations on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
We'll take turns, but we'll just keep it to like 3 series.
Yeah.
We'll do with mom and kid, and parents and kid conversation over and over,
Yeah.
and we would like to see more people join. Like, fill up the panels here, so we all take turn in discussing our concerns and our comments and our thoughts behind it.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it from a business lens of perspective, it doesn't cover our kids.
Right.
If you look at it from academic perspective, it does not cover our kids. Academia is pushing what industry needs, and industry uses what academia pushes. Kids are not involved in any of these scenarios, right? And you look at the media. Media is only going to sell what the industry needs them to sell.
Yeah.
You get my point? So
Yes.
kids really be our responsibility as parents, to have these conversations around the kids, for the kids, by the kids, right? Maybe we need to put more kids on the camera, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, the
have
royal.
them come and ask questions.
It's important to get them started young also, because if they're learning, like they're learning piano, they're learning languages,
That's right.
learning AI, it's like there is no they're too young before I teach them. Like they have so much time before they grow and they go and they become, who they're going to become. So now is the time at the young age to get the conversation going and maintain it.
I have few high schoolers that I communicate with, and I would like to see them come to this show and talk about their perspective. Because in my podcast, I interviewed somebody who was in senior or junior in college.
Mhm.
The perspectives are totally different, because there's a 20 years in age gap.
Yeah.
That's totally different perspective, and from them, safety, security, and privacy is far different than safety, security, and privacy for us, right?
Yeah.
We probably don't even think about it. They actually thought about it a lot more than we have, because they're thinking, who's going to be able to see this information? And tools and gadgets that are out there right now is insane. They have almost zero privacy built into them, right? And when there's a system that doesn't have privacy, kids don't care about privacy of
Yeah.
other people. They
Yeah.
care about their privacy. Other people's privacy don't count,
Right.
right? So,
Right.
so we'll of course we'll have more conversation about this. And one of the things that I would like to add is Smart AI community, right?
Hmm.
So if you're asking questions on ChatGPT and all of a sudden you think like, you know what, Asif said something, maybe Asif can answer it. Here I am, right? You can come to Smart AI community. We meet twice a week. This is one of them. And the other one is going to be an office hour. So I'm not going to interrupt your dinner time. It's going to be during the office hours on Fridays, probably between 11 to 1. We are shifting from Thursdays to Fridays. So we have to figure out either it starts at 11 or it starts at 1. And that's your opportunity to come and ask questions, right? You can bring business use case, you can bring your personal use case, whatever AI that you're worried about or you need some deep understanding of. We'll try to do that in real time, so you don't have to spend months and years on YouTube or digital content or go to school for 6 or 7 weeks to figure out what AI is. We would like to get you started on AI in the right direction, personalize it for your use cases, right? For the needs that you have. And I always use the example of somebody in a biology field, right? I'm a biologist. I'm not going to use AI. Excuse me. You will.
Yes, you will.
Have you seen
Yes,
the
you will.
protein fold? Have you seen the research on DNAs? Have you seen the research on, all the things that AI does much
AI
faster?
is AI is in everything. And if you're a parent that you
Mm,
would like to put yourself in a position for you to thrive,
yeah.
find Mommy Mommy to Be in Me app and fill out the form and let us know what it is that you and your children need, and we will do our due diligence to help put you in position to live an abundant life. I always say we give you the tools to eliminate poverty of mentality, physicality, and spirituality.
Yeah, yeah, and we always need help. We always need more people to join the conversation, chime in, put the comments in, ask the questions. One of the things that I specialize on is how to frame your question so that way you can benefit from it, right?
Yes.
Where's the jobs? Where's the jobs that fits my lifestyle? I have 2 kids at home. I don't want to commute to a location, or I want to be able to come home and be home by a certain time. How do I do that, right? So there's a lot of these questions, and I would like to see you ask those in this kind of events. So it is late at night. We kids are probably going to sleep, and I need to be on sleep. I need to tuck them in soon. What a conversation, right?
Yeah.
This is the type of conversations that we have offline, but to do it in person, do it virtually in front of live audience is a great start. I've been meaning to do this for a very long time, so
Well, I'm
finally.
glad you did it. I always say we're the answer to someone's question, because
That's right.
that is the question for a lot of parents.
Yeah.
What can I do near home, at home, earn this amount of money with what I already have, with the skill set like with the things that I'm already passionate about. So to
Right.
be able to take data literacy and then turn that into AI position that you can work from home, it's simply you're one question away from your destiny.
You have the domain expertise, just got to sprinkle some AI into it.
Yeah, because that's the secret sauce. That's the secret sauce. Being able to ask the right questions,
Yeah, yeah,
right? The prompt, being
right.
able to write the proper prompt for it.
Prompt. So much going on with that, right? Well, just to give you some numbers of the prompt. One of the jobs was like $1 million salary by the time everybody was fighting over this one prompt engineer guy. So there's a lot of demand for prompt. Prompt engineers are really in high demand. Well, with that being said, we're gonna jump off of this live stream and end the stream for tonight. But until next time, take care. Look up and keep asking questions.
Yes, keep asking questions.
All right, y'all. See you next time.